The rich array of services that other communities can only envy. That, of course, requires the budget resources to provide those services. What are we going to need to do in the coming 4 to 8 years, during which time you might serve on the Palo Alto City Council, to make sure that our budget is strong and we can continue to provide that rich array of services and programs? We're going to begin with Greer Stone.
Thank you. Well, it is very important to make sure that our budget continues to be viable and to be able to work for the people of Palo Alto for decades to come. I serve on the Human Relations Commission, and a part of that, we have to deal with the HISRAT budget, which is essentially Human Services Resources Allocation Process. It is a mouthful. I practiced it several times before coming here. And that's one of the first budgets that always get cut. And that addresses our social service needs, mental health, senior services, homeless. Being able to have a budget that is, as I said, that is viable, that works for Palo Alto, is going to be able to ensure that services like that do not get cut. And one of the things that we must look into is our pensions, our health care. They take up a significant portion of our budget, and we need to strengthen that to make sure that it can continue to be viable for years to come.
Thank you very much. Arthur Keller.
Thank you very much. So first I want to recognize that a lot of the rich array of services that we have are provided by our businesses. And I was pleased that a deal was announced today between that Cine Arts is going to continue in Palo Alto for at least another 2 years. Thank you, and I'm glad to have played a role in that, in keeping that here. Also found out today of some sad news that Hebel and Shukin is closing at the end of the month. So we see things that we win one, we lose one. In terms of the budget resources from Palo Alto, I think that one of the things we have to think about is in terms of how we negotiate with our employees. So currently our management team negotiates with our employees what the raises are, and then the management gets a Me Too raise of exactly the same thing, which is sort of like self-dealing. I think that we need to basically negotiate with the management team separately so that they don't realize that whatever they negotiate for their employees are the same as what they get themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Leonard Ely.
To be honest, I really can't comment on this too much because I don't know all that much about the budget and how it works. Again, I'm the sort of person that plans on learning about these things and making decisions on them. I did work on a project while I was on the board of the Junior Museum and Zoo to rebuild the Bobcat cage and getting it through the city so that we could give it to the city was arduous and very time-consuming. And I think that the nonprofits that work with a lot of our city services should be given a little bit more leeway in building things and doing things that they in turn give back to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Ely. Don McDougall, budget.
So when we're talking about budget and particularly relative to community services, we're really talking about partnership. Not only are community services provided by business, but also by nonprofits. And I think the nonprofits in the community have done a wonderful job of working with the community. The Friends of the Library, for example, and the support that they give to the library is incredibly important, and the library is just a fundamental part of our community. I think the second thing is that beyond the partnerships, we have to worry about the top line. We have to continue to worry about we have to continue to worry about what revenue comes into the city, and therefore the viability and the importance of local retail and local hotels, for example, are important. I think the next thing is that we need to be careful of risk and manage our risk carefully. And if we can manage all those things, then I think we can manage the budget, particularly relative to services that are so important in our community.
Thank you, Mr. McDougall. Ms. Code.
In the next few years, there are 9 infrastructure projects that are coming up for the city to work on. They're all big projects, with one of the bigger ones being the public safety building, and then there are 2 garages that are going to be planned for the city. And of course, there's 6 others. So that's a very large amount of the budget that's going to be going towards that. We all love the Mitchell Park Library as well as the community center, but we have to also be remembering what had taken place when it was going through construction. So oversight and ensuring that we don't overspend our money on change orders is one of the ways that we can ensure that we have some money left over for all our services that has been benefiting all the residents here in Palo Alto. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tanaka, budget and services.
Absolutely. So, I think a lot of people move to Palo Alto for the high quality services that we get in Palo Alto. That's why one of the reasons why I moved here, for great schools, for great services, but it all takes money. So having a fiscally strong city is critically important. I served on the Infrastructure Blue Ribbon Commission. In our final report, we came up with an infrastructure shortfall of something like $457 million. This is in 2010 dollars. Now the city has done a lot to make some headway on this shortfall, but we still also have the pension and healthcare liabilities, which is around $500 million. So there's some big things that the city needs to be concerned about and really address. And then one of the best ways of addressing is actually increasing the top line. So the city has 3 strong revenue sources. One is property tax, which we don't have much control over. We have sales tax, which we have tremendous control over, as well as hotels. And in my business, we actually help retailers improve their sales staff. And I think that the city needs to really focus on retail and making it strong and vibrant, so that first of all we get the double whammy. We get the services that residents expect, as well as the sales tax dollars.
And thank you. Ms. Niss.
So talk about the budget a little. The budget last year was about 170 million for our general fund. That means that we're spending somewhere close to $3,000 per resident in this city for services. Maintaining that over a long period of time is a real challenge. If some of you remember the recession of 01, 02, and then the other one that hit in September of 08, you recall what that did to the city budget. There were cuts made. They've never totally been reinstated as far as the number of employees that we have at the city. That changes the service level. We have looked at outsourcing. We've looked at any number of ways to replenish that budget and to keep it vital, viable, be able to pay the pensions, along with the retirement and other costs of our employees. It's very important to remember those services are dependent very much on just the taxes Greg spoke about. And thank you all for voting for the hotel tax that will support those infrastructure buildings.
Thank you, Ms. Niss. Mr. Frederick.
Thank you. I really think the budget issues begin with the city manager submitting a balanced budget, which was not the case this year. Then I also feel that the things that Lydia Koo said and Liz Niss about capital works, public works, and labor costs, the encumbrances of pensions into the future particularly, mean that we have to be very alert to the expenditures on labor, which I know from working in the school system. Labor is a huge portion of your budget, and so you can't, without looking at expenditures, you're going to have a real trouble getting your arms around the budget. Major projects like a new safety building, I do not approve of at this time. I think we should fix the building here if it's not safe enough for the police. I don't think it's safe for anybody.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick. That takes us to Mr. Stuart Carl. Mr. Carl.
I agree with Mr. Keller. We have to make sure our city management has the right incentives to manage or to negotiate effectively with our city employees. But I also believe we can save some money by empowering our neighborhood associations by funding them. I was the co-founder of an organization named Sky Posse, and we enlisted hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions of dollars worth of time from local talent to work on the problem of aircraft noise. Empowered local voluntary organizations can do a lot to help reduce city budgets and can spend money many times much more effectively than the city employees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our last candidate on this topic, budget and services, Adrian Fine.
Thank you very much. So at a high level, we need to make sure the city maintains a healthy top line. And that means, one, increasing revenues, as some of my colleagues have mentioned, and two, it does mean cutting costs. I think we can increase revenues by maintaining a viable business sector, which does pay gross receipts, which fund all the services we so need and desire. Two, we can also make the city more efficient and streamlined. I was speaking with a nonprofit this morning, and they were just trying to build an awning, which is supposed to cost $13,000. Because of delays in permitting and working with the city, it's going to cost them $30,000 now. That's unacceptable. We need to empower staff to be able to make these decisions, show us where the pain points are, and then solve them quickly. We also need to fight more creatively and actively for county and regional funds. As some of you may know, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and the Association of Bay Area Governments will soon be merging. They are going to combine the funding sources for many of the projects, and Palo Alto needs to be at the table every time. Last idea here, for some of the big costs we have, whether it's the police station or our grade separations on Caltrain, we should look at naming rights from some of the wealthy individuals in the city. I don't care if it's the Zuckerberg grade separation, fine by me.
Thank you very much. How about a round of applause for all 10 of the candidates?